Over the last 100 years or so, South Africa has produced numerous world-class cyclists across the various disciplines in the sport that have gone on to garner national and international recognition for their achievements. The likes of Ashley Moolman-Pasio, Robbie Hunter, Daryl Wimpie and Greg Minnaar are examples. Others have gone about breaking barriers and setting records with regularity, but without the media hype. Today on Toyota Cadence, we meet a man with a remarkable record and a good story to tell.
I'm Wimpie van Merwe. I've been cycling since I was 10 years old, but only became a late starter to start cycling competitive at the age of 19. Prior to that, I actually set my first world record at 17, and it was two journalists of the newspaper that asked me, wouldn't you like to race? So I said, well, I don't know anything about racing. The challenge was, if you are able to ride cheaper to Cape Town than with our fuel, we'll pay in the difference. So we immediately took the challenge and said, yes, we will. So they had to pay, I think, the 19 or 20 rand that it cost for fuel. They had to pay to the Springbok Radio Christmas Fund. And the next year we rode from Walvis Bay to Johannesburg. And that way I started cycling when I came to Stellenbosch. My first year I already did my first rapport tour, and eventually four decades later I'm here.
Wimpie went on to race the rapport tour 9 times. Through his dedication and disciplined and focused approach, Wimpie van der Merwe has harvested world titles and world records like Mark Cavendish does tour stage wins. 3 times he was crowned South African champion as well. So what stands out amongst the records and titles?
If I have to look back at my career, I have 8 world championship titles and I broke 14 world records. Emotionally, a world record counts more for me than a world title, because on the day you could have been just the best, or the person who should have competed wasn't there and you became a world champion. So for me, a world record was you're the best ever in that event, ever. And that emotionally is a satisfying thing. My last world record was the 4,000 meters. Based on the rules, it was in a 3-kilometer track. It took me literally 2 days and several attempts per day to break it. It took a couple of years before it was broken.
Wimpie's strength is endurance riding, and his world records have come across a broad range of distances on the track and the road.
The different world records that I set was ranging from 4 kilometers up to 1,000. And I broke my own world records several times. So I became my own competitor. I became my own opponent. One world record where I did my 24-hour and my 1,000 kilometers in one ride. I had 3 high-felt thunderstorms soaking the track. And I had to ride through that. And that nearly made that I didn't get that record, or both of them.
The rapport tour in the 1970s and 80s was the pinnacle of road racing in South Africa, with massive interest across the country. And Wimpie van der Merwe was very much part of the golden era of the race.
In my first rapport tour, my teammates were, for example, the late Alan van Heerden. My peers, Robbie McIntosh, Erkies Besaidnout. These are the guys that I rode with. And later, as came in Billy Engelbrecht, the Benekers. So those were the peer group that I raced in. Possibly the one that most of the general public know of, or perhaps even don't know about, is I've been holding the August Tour, which is now the Cape Town Cycle Tour, fastest average speed for 31 years now. So that is one. I've been South African champion on the road 3 times. I've been South African Madison champion for 4 times. My point was, I use the local or the non-important races as stepping stones for the important events.
With a lifetime of championships, titles and records, one would be forgiven for thinking Wimpie would be happy to ride off into the sunset on an e-bike. He certainly earned it, but far from it. He continues to ride as often and as fast and far as he possibly can by pushing the boundaries of what a 60-plus cyclist can and should be doing.
My purpose and my mission is currently to be the best I possibly can be. I'm finding challenges for myself, and Everesting is one. It's a very hard event, or you could make it a very easy event, but I don't think there are really easy events in Everesting. We've, for example, just did the Tal Monument climb. I did, for that one, 10,000 meters in a 202-kilometer ride. And you go up and down on your own. There is nobody else with you. You're just doing it. It's a challenge. Another kind of discipline I'm focusing on competing internationally is doing Audaxing, is where you have a 1,500, 2,000-kilometer ride. Everybody starts at the same time, and the first over the line is the winner of the event. So you can either stop as long as you want to when you want to sleep, or you just continue. It's not how fast you are, it's how little you stop. And that is one of the advantages I have at my age, and that is to know how to go around with the lack of sleep.
Without doubt, Wimpie is a man from whom so much can be learnt by aspiring cyclists, and he's always been happy to share his knowledge with others.
Since I started cycling, I always had a protege. From school guys, leading them up to South African Championship title holders, Springbok cyclists, professional cyclists. And at this point, I am having proteges who are more mature riders. Again, it's people that I try to make them the best they can be. They are much better cyclists than I am now currently, and then I know I've actually succeeded, because it's when the disciple knows more than the master, then you know you succeeded. If a person is willing to learn, I'm willing to impart knowledge, impart experiences, and that way leaving something for the next generation of cyclists.
By dint of his age, Wimpie just missed out on competing for South Africa when they returned to the Olympics in 1992. But that did not in any way snuff out his ambition of being a world beater. In fact, if anything, it ignited a fire.
In 1992, we were readmitted to international sport, and the national selectors said to us that they are not really interested in the older riders anymore, that they're going to focus on the new generation for Olympics in the future. So I said to myself, but I can't select myself for a Springbok team. How do I compete against the world's best? And that's where I made a decision. I want to attempt the world records. I went to Tim Noakes, explained to him what I wanted to do, and he said, there is no ways that I can give you answers to the information that you are seeking. You have to become your own scientist. So I got a group of specialists at the Stellenbosch University's medical school, and we tried to answer the questions we had. And we got phenomenal results based on that. And that's where the world records came from. But this grabbed the attention of Aerodyne, who was manufacturing the Lotus bicycle. And they said, we want you to do our world record. I said, you're crazy. This is the most prestigious record attempt that you'll ever get. And it's not anybody. And I recommended different cyclists for them to ask. They said, no, we want you. I said, okay, you'll have to explain to me why you want me. So they said, it's because you have the mindset. You already accomplished world records. You know what it cost and the focus that's needed. Said, okay, you selected me. So what they did, they got Graham Hall, the aerodynamicist that worked with the Lotus group, for Boardman with the Olympics in '92, and for his hour record. So they came out to the CSIR, and for 3 days I sat in the wind tunnel. They got me in the most aerodynamic position, and then they built the bike under me. So they manufactured that bike, and then I had 4 months to get accustomed to this position. From there onwards, went to France. The mathematicians worked out I needed 425 watts for an hour. So I could produce 427 for 65 minutes. I created 5 minutes extra just in case. So we knew the record would be possible. And this was to break Graham Abree's world record. 36 hours before the world record, the UCI came to approve the bike. And when they measured the bike, they said, this is not legal. I said, how can it not be legal? This is the bicycle. I said, no. They changed the rules 2 weeks before, based on the fact that Graham Abree had a bicycle position which they thought was a little bit extreme, and then they reformulated how a bicycle should look like. Since this bicycle was built under me and nothing could be moved, the only way we could become legal is for the 7 centimeters that I had contact on the saddle. We had to saw off 5 centimeters of the front of the saddle. I had 2 centimeters contact. So for an hour, I sat on 2 centimeters. So obviously, the world record was not broken. But in hindsight, if we did the record, it would be one of the open records for so-called illegal positions, even the Aubry position, Boardman's Superman position. And South Africa could have had our record. So that is one of the things in my cycling career which I say I wish it was different.
With a lifetime of cycling and bikes, Wimpie has over the years accumulated a large collection of cycling-related kit and equipment. But it took a chance meeting after World Championships in the United States for him to be made aware of the value of all that memorabilia.
All my bicycles are in the museums. Currently in Franschhoek at Johan Rupert's museum, and on loan they've given a bicycle to the I will call it a museum for South African cyclists and South African Afrikaner. So then I started realizing I sit with a lot of material that might not be appreciated by my own family once I'm not there. So I decided rather let it be displayed in a museum, so that for the general public, and if my family would like to see it, then they can go there. So in Grabouw, we have my medals, the World Championships medals, World Championship jerseys, and then an example of one of the bicycles. I think it could have been one of the first of 2 mobile bicycles that I rode the August tour with, because that was why the bicycle was built. And so it's in the museum for everybody to see.